Hello and welcome back to another Warhammer 3 video we have for you today. We finally got a look at the next character for the Lords of the End Times DLC, and it's going to be Boris Todbringer, a fan favorite for the Empire, with a brand new redesign to go along with all the units he's going to have, as well as more info on the first ever character pack for Grand Cathay, with Bhashiva the White Tiger and the free legendary hero Taoyan the Merciless. So Boris Todbringer has been in the game for many years now, ever since the Call of the Beastmen DLC came out way back in the first game, and was the unofficial legendary lord for the Empire. And since he played such a pivotal role in the End Times, it only makes sense he's going to be part of the DLC, along with the redesign to make him look more like the Warhammer 3 lords. I think overall he looks really good, but I do know many players enjoy the Warhammer 1 design, so I'm sure a brave modder out there will let you play with the old one. So Boris will still be starting in Middelheim where he's always been, but instead of being on the defensive trying to keep out the Skaven and Chaos and all the other threats, instead, Boris will be much more aggressive, marching towards the enemy's doorstep to bring the fight to anyone who even thinks of attacking the Empire, as well as expanding the Empire's reach beyond the old world. Boris will also be representing Ulfric, the War God, as you can tell from just how aggressive his faction is going to be, and his Lord select screen as well, so you can probably guess what units he's going to have. And we also got the first in-game look at him, which is also a first for the End Times DLC, since we know what Nagash looks like, but we haven't actually seen him in-game, just the trailers. And alongside his in-game look, we also have his unit card, so his stats aren't nothing crazy. He's built like a normal Empire Lord with sword and shield. So his stats, he has a bit of armor with 85, leadership 75, his speed is 34, then his melee attack is 60 and his defense is 50, and then weapon strength is 430 and then charge bonus is 45. And overall, his stats are solid, but I would say they're a bit lacking in the damage department, and that most likely means his true strengths are in his items and mechanics, which makes a lot of sense for the Empire because they're all about building up your force and strength over time, so Boris himself is going to reflect that with him being a bit on the weaker side compared to other lords like for example Skulltaker. And speaking about damage, he's also going to have an ability called Crush the Weak that Boris Todbringer actually already has in game, but it's also going to be placed on all Ulfric units going forward as well. The ability itself gives out weapon damage and armor piercing up to 15%, and the unit speed is up to 10% depending on the enemy's unit leadership, as well as it being a passive ability with a 55 meter range. With this ability, it makes his faction more melee focused than the rest of the Empire's armies, and hopefully that means we'll have more bonuses for melee units that are already in the roster. But like most things that were shown during the live stream, this is subject to change. Of course, like the icon is just a generic one, and some of the stats as well. So again, nothing is set in stone, so when this does come out, don't be surprised if it does change. And the last thing we know about Boris is something I really didn't expect to see, and he'll be getting 2 voice options in custom battle with a fan favorite of Toddy.
Boris Todbringer, at pace! None shall live! Oh, I hate Kazrak One-Eye.
I know we can't. I know we can't. But for me, can we all just have one? It's me, Toddy! Like there's one. It never gets used. There it is.
It's great to actually see him able to voice the character, and I know many players themselves are excited for him to be in the game, but the downside is his voice will only be for custom battles, and the other new voice will be for the campaign. And I do think that's a shame, and hopefully with enough player feedback we can have him in the campaign just as we do with custom battles. Then we have 2 units revealed alongside him, the first of being the Tenno Guard, a heavy infantry unit armed with hammers, who are either nobility or very strong warriors, finally giving the Empire a unit that can go toe to toe with the other strong infantry units of the other melee focused factions of Chaos or Vampire counts, allowing the Empire's armies to have more aggressive playstyles than the usual formations they use in battle. And for their card stats, it's going to be 110 armor, their leadership is 85, the speed is 28, melee attack is 42 with armor sundering, melee defense is 53, weapon strength is armor piercing with 45, charge bonus is very little with a 16, they have a passive ability of Crush the Weak, expert charge defense, and immune to psychology. They have fewer numbers than the greatswords, but are meant to be an all-rounder type of unit with expert charge defense, armor piercing, along with their armor sundering, making them great against any infantry they might come across, making them incredibly strong for a tier 3 unit, but I do like that their speed is low, so you really have to rely on Crush the Weak to chase down the enemies. And one thing before we move on to the next unit is CA said is that these units will be much harder to get than the others, but Boris himself will have an easier time, so I just assume we're getting a mechanic or a landmark, and so he'll be able to get them early on compared to other Empire factions. Well, they'll need more one building type, even though yeah they are a tier 3, having them harder to recruit makes them a bit more balanced in the long run. And if you don't want to miss any future Total War news or information, hit that subscribe button and keep up to date and help the channel grow at the same time. Then we're on to the Knights Panther, another unit players have been asking for a long time, and they make another addition to the knightly orders that we already have in game. I really do like the designs. I think the helmet's really spot on. And for their unit cards, they have 110 armor with a shield, making them great for tanking, as well as leadership with 80 and a speed of 78. Their melee attack is 45 and their melee defense is 48, and their weapon strength is 44 with an anti-large, as well as their charge bonus being 60 and immune to psychology. With the high stats of 110 armor and 44 weapon strength, they do perform similar to the other knightly orders, but what they do best is their charges and the anti-large they have. So this unit's gonna be much better at stopping monstrous infantry from getting to your lines, or just slowing down the enemy in general to give your melee units time to get in formation. And since they don't have anything on top of their cards showing their strengths, it leads me to believe they might have something we just don't know about yet, or it's just tied to Boris's mechanic. And one last thing Creative Assembly gave us about the Empire is a hint at 3 more units. They don't show us a whole lot, so let me know down below in the comment section what you think these units could be. Overall, I really like what they showed off, and I'm very hyped for the Empire DLC, as well as Boris Todbringer himself. I can't wait to see what the rest of the Lords are for the Lords of the End Time DLC. Then we got more info for the Grand Cathay character pack with Bhashiva the White Tiger and our first in-game look at her alongside her abilities. And in the gameplay we see Bhashiva herself is incredibly agile. Combined with the dodge and high damage, she'll be able to take on any unit or lord and run away if needed. Charge, she's an armor of 60, leadership of 80, speed of 52, her melee attack is 65 with magical and flaming, her melee defense is 50, her weapon strength is 500 with armor piercing and anti-infantry, as well as her charge bonus being 50, and she has dodge on top of that. For her size, her stats are very good, and you can definitely tell what she's built for, and that is tearing up the enemy as fast as possible and then sneaking away to get your abilities back. Her and the Tigermen also have an ability called Ferocious Ambush, increasing speed of each type, also giving devastating charge whenever charging. So basically the closer you get to the enemy, the faster you go, which is also pretty interesting for a unit, which makes her and the Tigermen the most agile units Grand Cathay has, letting your army get in formation while they strike at the enemy's backline. And even her items reflect that, with the first one being Heaven's Gate, allowing Bhashiva to teleport across the battlefield with a decent range so you can get to the enemy spellcaster much quicker or the artillery and disrupt them. The ability also deals armor piercing damage to enemies and disrupts formations with a big explosion, which is fantastic for making a big gap in the enemy's front lines. Then the next ability might sound familiar, the Blades of Shangyang. It's an active ability that imbues flammable and also increases base weapon damage by 30 as well as armor piercing and then melee attack by 24 for a duration of 32 seconds. And for those of you who don't understand where this name comes from, it's actually from a leak about a year ago from the Legend of Total War, so some of this had some truth in it, but besides that, this ability is going to pair really well with how she plays. Then the next ability we have is called the White Tiger. It's a passive ability with a leadership plus 8 and melee attack plus 5 and an effective range of 55 meters. The downside is it will only be affecting Tiger Warrior units, so none of your other roster is actually going to benefit from it, which is a bit sad, but it again makes sense for a DLC character to boost DLC units. And the last ability she has is called the Master of the Hunt. This is also a passive ability that reveals all units in a 50-meter range. This ability is really good, especially when you're fighting the Skaven or Beastmen, where most of their units and their armies are hidden until they strike. Overall, I really like her abilities, and I think her playstyle is going to really add a lot of flavor to Grand Cathay. And now on to the free legendary hero for Grand Cathay, and that's going to be Taoyan the Merciless, a human character with a massive spear that has talent claws in the end, and her main thing is she's going to be really good against large units. She was an exiled warrior who is known for her brutality during the rebellions in the Central Province, and then got recruited by Bhashiva later on as a mercenary, and was available to all Cathay factions, so you won't need any DLC to play her. And for her unit card info, she's an armor of 90, leadership of 80, her speed is 34, her melee attack is 50 with magical attack, melee defense is 60, weapon strength is 420 with anti-large armor piercing, and then lastly her charge bonus is about 30. So with her base stats being really good and combined with her small size, she's gonna have an easy time getting past the enemy lines and chasing the other heroes and dealing high damage quickly, which is kind of her purpose. And the first of her abilities are called Tyrant's Talon. It's a weapon augment that imbues brutal wounds, so basically they just get the wounding effect a lot earlier on, and then base weapon damage up 25%, same thing with armor piercing, and then melee attack plus 24 for 27 seconds. It's a pretty decent ability, helping her deal a lot more damage against large units or just anything with armor. And then we have Fueled by Vengeance. It's a passive ability that gives out weapon damage and armor piercing up to 25% as well as ward save up to 20, and how it works is the more damage she takes, the higher it goes. So you want to just throw into the fight and kind of let that stack up. And this ability is going to pair really well with Bhashiva herself. While she attacks the backline, you can send Taoyan to distract the enemy as well as their heavy hitting units. Then for her last ability, we don't have a name for it just yet for whatever reason, but what it does is a hex ability. It can cause terror, give her Executioner, which is really good, and then it makes the enemy have melee defense minus 24. And combined with the other abilities, she's going to be great against any opponent since she deals just so much damage very quickly and also has the defense to stay in the fight. And the last information to go over is some changes made to Grand Cathay. Like the Gate Master and Alchemist now having some new stuff on their skill tree, making them a bit more useful than they used to be, as well as giving out a Sky Lantern mount, since now the unit itself is going to be more of a supporting unit rather than just floating artillery. And the tech tree itself will also be getting an update with 2 branches, one with military, handling all your buffs and the units and lords, and the other one's going to be a province for all your economic and campaign effects. It's always nice to see them make some changes to the tech trees, and this one's going to be much more streamlined than before, so no longer you going through the whole tech tree just to get some buffs for your peasant spearmen. That's gonna wrap up the video. So glad to see a fan favorite character like Boris finally be playable as a legendary lord, as well as Bhashiva with her teleporting around the battlefield looks really great, as well as a new hero that looks pretty interesting as well. Overall, I'm super excited for both DLCs and I can't wait to try out all the new units. So let me know down below your thoughts on the DLC, and thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, it really does help the channel grow, and I will see you later.